Today is June 12, 1975, and I'm interviewing Dr. William Haber in the King David Hotel in Jerusalem.
I made the observation to you in a letter that the person on my staff who had the greatest familiarity with the subject was Mr. Abraham Hyman,
Right.
who was a deputy or assistant not only to me, but to every Jewish advisor from the very beginning. We started with, even before Rabbi Rifkin, Judge Rifkin was the first one. We went through Phil Bernstein, Judge Leventhal, myself, succeeded, and my successor, Harry Greenstein, and eventually he himself closed his career as an advisor on Jewish affairs. I believe he lives in Israel. I believe he's here now.
Right.
Although I think he was in the States at the time you wrote me.
I also know Abe Hyman very well. While we were at the Joint Distribution Committee, we were there together, and we both did research. And when I came across this particular item, I interviewed him on the spot, and I read to you from that interview. In going over what we had just read, that in brief, the Army officer's strength was being reduced, and I could not in good conscience make a case for retaining some of the men who had either developed outside interests or were generally ineffective in their work. And I said, what does that mean? And he says, it means that a number of the chaplains saw a golden opportunity to make a buck, and they devoted themselves almost wholly to that work. Now, these are very serious statements. And
Did he elaborate on that?
And then I'll read further the interview. I say, now this is something new. And his answer was absolutely. And can you be specific about it? No. But I'm going to say it in my book, and you can say it in your book or not. Some of the chaplains, you can quote from this report. I understand. But now I have the author of it in front of me, and I don't know what to do. You're not going to. You couldn't. If you paid me $1 million, my friend, to give you a name, I will not do it. I will not say it, some of the chaplains. So I said, but isn't publishing something like that casting a doubt on the entire group? On whom? On the entire group of 9. Not at all. Retaining some of the men. Who said 9? All right, but how many of them were there? We talked about 9. We're retaining some of them, but we don't know how many. So if we know the 9 names, then they're all under a cloud. I'm not going to give you any name. I wouldn't dream of it. If you gave me now, offered me a check for $1 million, this was the answer. And I had interviewed Rabbi Klausner in New York, and I said to him, look, I came across this document in the JDC. They wouldn't let me Xerox it. There's a whole problem there of Xeroxing. But then I was fortunate enough to get material at the World Jewish Congress, and there I Xeroxed it, or I got this at the American Jewish Committee. I don't remember where. I have to check. And so I couldn't produce this in front of him and say, well, look, this is why my concerns were aroused. And secondly, I had an interview which was not transcribed at that point, which it is now.
To Klausner?
To Klausner, when I spoke to Klausner.
Did Klausner show you or give you a copy of my letter to
He
him?
showed me the letter. So I said to him, look, this is what I spoke to Abe Hyman about. I then even called Rabbi Lev. Rabbi Lev, Zichrono Levracha, did not remember the incident, or for whatever reason could not tell me about it.
What incident?
The whole ending of the curtailment of the program. So, because what I was trying to do from Hyman was to get, was it 1? Was it 2? You indicated that it was 1 individual that was involved in an incident. Well, if that's the case, then I don't understand why you use more than 1. The terminology says that I would retain some of the men, but some of them also have developed outside interest. And then then there was a letter to Rabbi Poole of September 8th. This report is of June 10th, and this is September 8th. And you say, I wish we had a half a dozen high-grade chaplains who could be of assistance in such situations. Now, I'm a little confused. Was this simply, and if that's the case, then why didn't you ask for more? Why didn't you send back some and ask for more?
I don't think I had any authority. That wasn't my major involvement. My major responsibility as an officer to General Clay was, particularly at that time, what's the year?
This was June, September 48.
Yeah, we were really getting to in a state of mind of hoping to close those camps.
That's true.
Israel was May. I came here in October to Israel, largely at the request of General Clay, frankly for the purpose of helping to determine as to whether if the camps were closed, Israel was in a position to receive the people. It makes no sense in September or even in July or August to think of increasing chaplains, frankly.
But you say, but you do say this in this letter over here, which I'll show you.
Yes, I know.
I think I sent it to you, a
Yes,
copy.
yes.
I wish we had a half dozen high-grade chaplains.
That's right. They were not high grade, period. That doesn't mean they're mamzerim.
I am not suggesting
That
they-
doesn't mean that they were dishonest. One guy was hit in an accident, was knocked unconscious, was taken to a hospital, and they found some $18,000 of American money on his person. And the military asked me what to do about him. I said, send him home. And what if hell breaks loose? And I begin to get telegrams from mayors and presidents of synagogues and rabbinical organizations, said the general's office. What do I say? Well, tell them very explicitly. So-and-so was sent home on the recommendation of your advisor on Jewish affairs, Professor William Haber. Period. No more telegrams scared. The thing stopped. But that doesn't mean to say that all the other people were of high quality.
But what about this? Abe Hyman says himself, there were some chaplains out to make a buck.
Well, I think that one illustration I have in mind is
But
a
you know,
good one.
That one I can accept. But
Okay,
why put it
well,
in terms of?
When you go into a chaplain's home and you find his pantry loaded with Jewish Welfare Board wine, or with stuff that really ought to be distributed to other people, it's not what I call mass immorality or dishonesty. It's damn poor judgment.
Okay.
And whether I could drink that wine there in comfort or not, I don't know. It was served to me. It didn't belong to me. If he wanted to be a good guy and offer me wine, he ought to buy it. He oughtn't to take it from stuff that was not intended for him. It was intended for community services and so on. Now, if you got one instance like that or two, and one fellow was found with what we assumed to be was black market money, you say, for goodness sakes, why can't we get some real guys here? That's all. That's all it says. We get high caliber people. Some people who rise above the kind of human weaknesses to which all of us now and then succumb.
Then how do I end it? Then what's the ending of the program of the chaplains, BP chaplains? How did it end?
I think I don't know how it ended. My memory doesn't go back to the particular date. The whole program ended a month after that letter. The whole program ended.
Was it because of the Army's...
No, the camps got to be closed. I happened to have the great privilege of being in Germany when the DP camps were closing.
But yet we still had DPs there in 50.
Oh, I know, but a handful. We had, at one time, I don't know how many thousands.
But why in September would you still say that we could use still half a dozen?
Because I did not expect that the camps would, after my return from Israel, And after the stabilization of the situation, and I think, see, I left in January.
Mm-hmm.
By September, October, some camps began to close. See, now, frankly, I don't know what Abraham had in mind. I'm rather relieved by what he told you, because I did not consult him. I did not talk with him after Klausner's letter.
Mm-hmm.
See, I do not know whether Klausner talked to him.
Well, I just received a copy of the letter that Klausner sent to Hyman,
Yes.
because, as you know, it did bother Rabbi Klausner very much.
Well, I wrote Klausner. Klausner showed you my letter.
Right. But he was upset that he felt that letter did not answer the question sufficiently.
Well, my letter didn't.
No.
Yes. Well, he wrote me a very gracious thank you letter for a frank statement that it was helpful.
Right, but you see, it was after that letter that he received this report from you, the June 10th, 1948 report.
Bear in mind that when I first met Rabbi Klausner, who made a very fine impression on me, I met him within weeks after getting there, and he had a point of view. A point of view I didn't agree with, but I respected. His point of view was that the JDC and the Army and the advisor on Jewish affairs and the chaplains were, in a sense, a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Because they made life too easy.
Right, I have those reports here.
For the DPs. That if we weren't so kind to them, we didn't try to make life pleasant for them, we didn't try to rehabilitate them, and we didn't try to improve their morale, they would have gone to Palestine. Mm-hmm. This is before Israel.
Right.
See, because I came in January, and this conversation took place either in January or February, because shortly after that, if my memory is correct, he went home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he left early. He left, I think, after the...
So, you know, with that kind of an attitude on his part, I would have imagined he would have been delighted if we sent all the chaplains home right away.
Well, it wasn't... I don't think he was concerned about whether the chaplains would go home or not. What he was concerned about is that this statement that was made in this report leaves a great deal to be...
Chaplains that were sent to Germany became a part of the atmosphere which prevailed in the German community. And in the German community, it was easy if you had a pack of cigarette, and particularly a carton, or a pound of coffee, or a pound of chocolate, to make $1.
I don't think that that would... that's a different story.
That's what Abraham has in mind.
Well, maybe yes and maybe I don't know. But you see, what I'm saying is, if a chaplain takes a carton of cigarettes to exchange for something that he needs, just like the DPs did, you know, it depends upon the level at which it was done, and how much, you know.
I recall one camp in Zeilsheim, where there was a great deal of black market going on. So much so that General Clay's office once asked me to see if I could be helpful. Because we tried to get the military to not to be too rigid or too technical. We tried to get them, I recall one case in which Abraham persuaded me that a Jew, a DP, who had forged the document, should not be prosecuted.
I have that.
And finally, against my better judgment, although in retrospect Mr. Harman was correct, I went to General Clay. I flew to Berlin, persuaded him that these people should not be prosecuted, but they wouldn't have survived if they didn't know the dirty tricks.
Mm-hmm.
And the general, I recall, said to me, one of these days, he said, Bill, these people have got to learn what is a moral way of living. I said, yes, I think they will, but they wouldn't be DPs, they would have been ashes if they hadn't found some way of circumventing life which faced them. Well, they forged their way out of someplace into a DP camp, and now they want to forge their way out of a DP camp into an American immigrant. He said, it's got to stop someplace. I said, I think they've already been punished. How have they been punished? They can never get a visa to the United States. And I don't think you should proceed with this. That was about the end of the conversation. The only solace, my letter was never acknowledged. The only solace I have is that the people involved, there were 3 of them, I believe, were never prosecuted.
Mm-hmm. I remember amongst the material that I have that there is a letter or something to that effect that, that you had intervened.
I recall quoting Justice Holmes that the law is the product of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the experience of these people, you see. Well, I think don't make a big deal out of this. After all, when you send over 9 or 19, I don't know how many chaplains there were, I'm not sure, I met them all. And you meet 3 or 4 people, and you find a couple of people who make a great impression on you, and it's fortunate they become close friends of yours even, because they're wonderful people. You can find a couple of rather ordinary people who have all the human frailties. Why should I make tzaddikim out of them?
We're looking for the truth, right?
And that's all I meant. That's all I meant. But I wouldn't know how to pick a chaplain. I haven't enough association.
Yeah, but you had written to Dr. Poole. Wouldn't there, if you felt there was
notice what I wrote to Dr. Poole. High caliber people.
Well, there were high caliber people in the chaplain's program. There were people.
I just didn't meet them.
No, oh, well, in other words, what you're telling me is that people. Do you remember who you met?
Oh no. I said, in fact, there were several in the group. I don't recall their names. This is nearly 30 years ago. Just 27 years ago. There were several in the group who, I wish I remembered, the one in Heidelberg, who not only turned out to be a close friend, I continued correspondence with him.
Brownie was there for a while, but I think before you...
He was not a...
He was in the IRO by that time.
IRO, yes. Incidentally, Max you ought to talk to.
I spoke to him.
Yeah, what did he tell you? You checked this with him?
Not with that. No, at that point I didn't know whether he was involved in any way with the chaplain. He would know.
No, but he was originally a chaplain.
Right. Well, but I assumed that you and Abe Hyman would know because you were. First of all, this was your report.
Yeah. Well, I am rather relieved that not having talked to Abe, not having communicated with him of Klausner's inquiry, I didn't know about you. That independently. And he was familiar with it.
Yeah, but your statement is a little different than his.
No. When he says, when I say high quality, and he says they were out to make a buck, that means the same thing.
Yeah, but you see, he says they were devoted wholly. Now, if a chaplain was...
devoted wholly to what?
Wholly to making a buck.
I think that's an overstatement. And I don't think he means it.
It means that a number of chaplains saw a golden opportunity to make a buck, and they devoted themselves almost wholly to that work. Well, that's a difference, because you see, if a chaplain was serving you JWB wine, that's no reason to end a program or to curtail it or not to ask for more people.
It had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, but you say because of these situations, I could not in good conscience. That doesn't bother me as much as seeing a chaplain when he was there for a specific reason to help the DPs, and he spent most of his time devoted to making money.
No,
I mean, maybe that is exaggerated, I don't know, but I'm in a situation where I don't know how to end this properly.
I don't know how you end. That's your business. You're writing the history, I'm not.
Right, but I'm not getting the information.
I'm not so sure you can get it. I lived through the period, and the impression I got was not totally negative, but hardly totally wholesome.
how would you say that? How would you characterize that period in which you worked with the chaplains? Was it a period in which there was a great deal to do and the chaplains rose to the occasion, or it was a period in which there was a great deal to do and they didn't do very much?
Well, I don't. There was a great deal to do. A great deal was done. A great deal was done to maintain the morale and hopes of the DPs. Much of it was done for those who were given skilled training in the vocational schools and the camps, preparing them to qualify for a visa to Canada or Australia or the United States. Much of it was done by the Committee for Liberated Jews, who urged them to go to Palestine in the expectation that it would become a Jewish state. Much of it was done by assisting those who needed counsel. It wasn't all done by chaplains.
Right, but
Much of it was done by moving orphan children to Canada and other countries. I wouldn't say that the chaplains had. Understand, I'm relying on a memory nearly 30 years ago, and I'm not a historian. I didn't keep a diary. All I have of the period, monthly or quarterly reports, I send into the 5 agencies, and we've got copies of them.
Right.
And I think that I never sent a report without going over it with Abe Hyman. Abe Hyman was in the field all the time. I was in the office and occasionally out in the field with him. And Dr. Poole was a highly respected, revered man whom I remember warmly, originally from my association with him in New York in 1939 when I was head of the National Refugee Service, and subsequently when he came to Germany. We were highly honored by his visit. I don't think the chaplains made an overwhelming contribution in sustaining the morale of the community. But I don't know that any other particular group did. But as part of the totality, they were useful. Some I wish hadn't come.
I wish we could pin that down a little more as to who in particular.
Well, certainly that's ridiculous. To give you the name of a person who may still be alive, I wouldn't be as silly as Abe says. I wouldn't tell it to you for $1 million. I wouldn't tell it to you for the respect of a person. I wouldn't want to defame somebody who in a moment of thoughtlessness did something he shouldn't have done. It wouldn't be in character for me.
But it's not so much to use it in a book, but simply to understand who is doing and
You're
what.
writing a book. I wouldn't tell it to you.
Well, I'm not going to include the names of people who did things.
You're going to include it here.
Well, I would stop the tape.
No, I wouldn't. I don't remember. That is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But if I remembered...
Do you remember if it was in Germany or Austria that these incidents took place?
I think both places. I only knew one in Austria.
Well, there's only... That's...
Whether it's in Austria or Germany or 2 or 3, who in a moment of thoughtlessness did something they shouldn't have done, I wouldn't indict the chaplains.
I'm not indicting the chaplains in any way, and that's why I'm spending so much time on this specific issue.
Well, I think you're overdoing it.
Perhaps. But because I wanted to know, were they really making a buck?
I don't know.
To become wealthy, or was it simply a matter that they would have some luxuries in their home? Because if they had some luxuries in their home, it didn't matter. If it interfered, you see, this is what
You know,
the level...
one of the weaknesses of being an advisor, of being the head of any office, whether you're a dean at a university, which I was, or the head of a program in the administration of public welfare, which I was, you're insulated from a great number of problems that, thank God, never reach your desk, because of the knowledge that if they did, you would slash left and right, no matter whom it hurt, because the integrity of the whole program was involved. And therefore, a great number of things never reached my desk. But comments, rumors, atmosphere did. And if circumstances lent themselves, I might say, who did that?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't lend themselves. Or if they did, and the name was given to me, I would take exactly the position of Abe Hyman.
Well, you have you don't remember how many people were talking about?
oh, 2 or 3. But, you know, if you got 9 or 10, if you're talking about 30%, you're not talking about something insignificant. You know, it doesn't take many apples to spoil a barrel.
Right. Well, the fact that it appeared in an important document like this report to the... In other
What
words,
appeared?
Well, I can't make a case in good conscience for retaining some of the men who had either developed outside interest or were generally ineffective in their work.
Well,
that was a serious accusation.
Some of the men.
Yeah, but you see, up to now, most of the reports on the chaplains have been very good, except for one report that I found made by the American Jewish Committee.
That they made?
They indicted the entire program of
Chaplaincy
and everything else. It said this was a report of May 1947 from Zachariah Schuster and David Bernstein.
Well, they're pretty reliable people. This is before I got into the business. In 1947, I was back at the university. In 1948, I went to Germany. But Zachariah Schuster was quite a careful observer. What did he say?
He said, quote, "The second group consists of 7 Jewish chaplains recruited by the Civil Affairs Division of Military Government with the specific task of working with DPs and guiding them in all difficulties that may arise. This is their sole assignment. We cannot report on their effectiveness as individuals, but it is obvious that they have not been able to cope with the overall problem. Some of them seem to have been less than helpful because they have tended to be influenced by the DP atmosphere rather than to offer constructive guidance. But effective or not, these chaplains are shortly to be dropped by the Army because of the theater-wide reduction in personnel has abolished their jobs as of June 30th, 1947. Well, but still a year later, we're still talking about the chaplains program.
And when I arrived to the pool in September 1948,
Yeah.
they certainly survived for a long time after they were supposed to be dropped, according to Zachariah Schuster.
Right.
You see. So there was hardly anything that we did to get them dropped. We just didn't move to retain or to have them replaced. And
Why wasn't there any move to have them replaced?
because I saw what was ahead.
You thought that there wouldn't be a need for them.
There wouldn't be a need for them. In fact, I tried to almost prolong my own stay until the last camp was closed.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're lucky you didn't. You would have been here
Yeah,
quite late.
that's right. Well, as a matter of fact, it's surprising how many new people came in, even at the end. Long after the war, after the pogroms or attitudes in Poland, people began to flood in. I recall when I went to Warsaw in the middle of 1948 for the memorial to the fighters of the Warsaw Ghetto.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw on the back of a car a license plate with the name Kielce, Kielce, the Lord brought instantly, because just shortly before that, there was a strong anti-Jewish riot long after the war.
That was in July 46.
Yes.
And then later.
And they began to filter across and eventually got into West Germany. And we got them integrated into some camp or other. No, camp life was hardly a pleasant atmosphere. And
But you did not agree with Rabbi Klausner that there was a great deal of black marketing going on. I noticed there's a tremendous
who said
divergence.
that?
He did, Rabbi Klausner, in his report. He wrote the report that you were alluding to before. He wrote this to the American Jewish Conference, the DP picture.
what age is that? What date is that?
This was May 2nd, 48, and
Well, he was still there, huh?
yes, he was still there. He left, he said, when the establishment of the state. And then your report of May 28th, 1948,
Now,
in which
let
you
me-
evaluate
let me-
Klausner.
Let me hear his report. What's he say?
There are approximately 100 DPs in the American zone. The official figure varies
How many?
100,000. If you'd like to read it yourself.
No.
Okay. The official figure varies from 114,000 to 124,000. A camp averages a 20% population margin. The population picture adequately presented would be in terms of 35,000 family units. Let's get to the general situation has been made difficult by the policy set down during the early days of liberation, which presently operates to the disadvantage of the welfare of the people. During those early months, the concentration camp Jew, anticipating his early departure from Germany, renounced every relationship with the German community. At that time, the sympathy of the U.S. forces and policy sustained the Jew, and the infiltration of the Polish Jews continued through the year. The policy was maintained, but only in word. The people found their way out of the camp into every sordid aspect of German society. In time, the Jew was involved in illegal endeavors ranging from prostitution to highly involved black market transactions. I do not believe it necessary to indicate the degree to which the Jew insinuated himself upon the sordid aspects of German post-war society. Of importance are the results of these activities. In recent months, the number of full-scale raids upon Jewish camps have increased. The camps at Heidenheim and Eschwege and Salzheim were raided. During the Heidenheim...
I was in the Heidenheim raid.
A Jew was
Right the
killed.
day after it happened.
Each raid, aside from increasing the tension between the American personnel and displaced, embarrassing the Jew in the presence of his German neighbors, whips the Jew into a state of resentment that will make it practically impossible to extricate him from his antagonisms. The number of people involved in the black market is estimated at a minimum of 30%. This excludes those who traffic in what might be termed the gray market or the basic food market. The luxury market, as contrasted to the basic food market, ranges from single dealings in American PX items to carloads of cigarettes. The earnings in this market likewise range from a few American dollars per year to $60,000 to $70,000 per year. There was one report which he points out that...
this is a more devastating estimate of the situation than I would have made.
Right. Well, as a matter of fact, you have this May 28th, 1948 report, which you completely criticize everything that the Klausner said. You take him to task for everything.
What did I say?
Evaluation of Klausner. You say that while he did a very good job in the beginning, a magnificent job, it's important, extremely important to bear in mind, however, that with Klausner, militant Zionism is a religion, an all-consuming passion. Now, I think that he would have disagreed with you at that point. In fact, Professor Bauer mentions in his book, The Bricha, that Klausner at that point was not a Zionist.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that was Abe's mistake. Abe persuaded me that he was. In retrospect, he wanted the people to get out no matter where.
Right. I think what happened with many of the chaplains was that whether they were Zionist or not, as with some of the JDC people, that they realized that there was no place for them to go.
Right.
And so therefore they said, go to Palestine, because that was the place that seemed to be.
Well, that's right. I never thought much of Klausner as a Zionist.
Oh, because you see, in 48 you did.
I know, but as I began to reflect, what he really was saying, close the goddamn camps, get the people someplace else.
That's right. And he was saying that the level of...
And you're making it too comfortable for them.
That's
he
right.
He talked, like the anti-Zionist, like Lessing Rosenwald.
Right.
We came to the camp and were very critical of the JDC because they kept the people comfortable.
Well, when I spoke to Max Browdy, he also told me that he said when he closed the camps as with the IRO, he said they had to throw them out.
They didn't want to leave.
They were very comfortable. So I think in retrospect, some of what Klausner said you would agree with.
Yeah, in retrospect, but at that particular time when I was I think my conversation with him was almost within a month after my arrival. And I almost began to ask, what the hell am I doing here?
You took issue on every statement that he made. He said that the morale was very low, the morals were terrible. Klausner was saying that it had reached a point in the camps where they were kidnapping people and large sums of money were being changed in the black market.
Klausner said what I said.
No, Klausner had said that, and you had taken issue with him.
I know. When you talk large sums and you're talking massive, this is a lot of petty stuff. But it's illegal and it's demoralizing. And
here, in your summary, you say, his factual analysis gives a distorted and inaccurate picture of the Jewish DPs. It exaggerates their shortcomings, ascribes to all the moral aberrations of the few, and completely fails to mention the positive and constructive aspects of the life of the Jewish DPs.
Yeah, right.
Now, I found it interesting because Klausner had worked with him almost from the very beginning, and it seemed to me that he would not want to picture them in such a horrible state if he didn't feel that was the case.
I know a lot of people who once they come across something bad, see nothing else.
But you don't feel that way today.
I don't. I didn't then.
But you don't.
I was critical, but a lot of wonderful, sweet, wholesome, sincere, devoted people who are trying to find a place for themselves. And, what Klausner was doing and what he's now charging some of us, what Klausner was doing with the DPs is what he was now charging some of us for doing with the chaplains, indicting the whole group. I never indicted the DPs, I never indicted the chaplains. But that doesn't mean to say that I couldn't find right here on the faculty of the University, Hebrew University, some people who I didn't think ought to be there. So I haven't helped you much because you're looking for something that's not available.
No, I'm not looking to make a case.
No, you're trying to get a person who has been in every nook and corner of the world for
the last 30 years to remember with a degree of specificity everything that happened in 10, 15 months in 1948 and 9. And it's not possible. If Haber feels that way, I feel very much relieved, because Abe and I never talked about it. I met Abe a couple of times.
So then it wasn't a serious thing. In other words, what you're telling me, it wasn't serious enough.
I told that to you. When I say, when you talk about a dozen chaplains, and there weren't that many, were there?
No, we were talking about 9 chaplains.
Okay, and I mentioned 3. I used the word some. What would you have said?
All right, well, first of all, I think I would have said that these 3 either should have been sent home or replaced or some way, but by doing what you did, you almost indicted the entire group, because you say some. Well, what does that mean? Some.
Well, for goodness sakes, it doesn't mean 9.
No, but it means enough that you can't, enough of the group that you can't, in good conscience, recommend that they stay.
On the contrary, it merely means that I don't want to bring in new people, and the difficulties we've had with some of the old ones, and in view of the fact that the program was winding down, and in view of the fact that we'd be the only ones to ask the Army to make an exception to curtailment.
And they weren't doing that?
The Army, by the way, was wonderful. When I recall, when Rabbi, I think it's SWEIG, from Munich came to my office, and they wanted to print a Talmud. And he said, we can't get the paper. It's not available in Germany. And I recall going to either Heidelberg or Berlin and getting General Clay or one of his aides to release an order to procure the paper. And I recall with what joy and pride Rabbi, some name like Zweig. I'm close to it, but it's not that.
Snake? Snake?
Say that again.
Snake?
That's it. Rabbi Snake. Yeah. A sweet old man with a lovely beard came into my office with volume 1 of 18 volumes. And how shall we dedicate this? And on the front page, in a cover page, dedicated to the Army of the United States of America. And eventually delivered to me with the 18 volumes, which I gave as a present to the B'nai B'rith Hillel Foundation at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, where it is. I strongly tempted to keep it. Unfortunately, my Hebrew was inadequate. And it would have been a pure memory, an audible where some student might sit down and read it, and to realize that there was a period in American history where the Army sustained a couple of 100,000 of our people, and took an attitude where the Army did not prosecute those who violated the law or committed forgery.
Yeah, but as you said, they were punished because they could not get into the United States.
Well, that's a State Department function, that's not the Army.
Yeah.
The Army did not prosecute. They were not punished for forgery, they were not punished for lying. They were merely denied a visa because they filed a false document.
Yeah.
You see. That's a different kind of a thing than going to jail for.
That's for sure.
You see. And I recall, if I live to be 100, I'll never forget that conversation with General Clay. And, I got memories of a beautiful thing. I hadn't seen General Clay for a long time. About 4 years ago, the American Jewish Committee called me. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they just hung a few Jews in the public square in Damascus. We're trying to organize a committee of non-Jewish Americans to be called, let the Jews leave, or the Exodus, or let my people go. Yes, why are you calling it? We want General Clay to be chairman. I said, well, the answer is 90% no. Why are you calling me? We want you to call him. I called him. He called back within the hour, and he wasn't in. Told him what I wanted. He said, well, I said, I think you ought to do it. I said, I wouldn't have called you if I didn't. What did you tell the people who called you? That you would not make a move without calling the State Department. And that the State Department would tell you not to do it. And that you would follow their advice. I said, well, you're right on number 1. I will call the State Department. I'm not so sure about the other 2. I'll call you back in 48 hours. I'll call back in 24. The answer is yes. The State Department said no. I decided to do it. Who talked to me? I said, Mr. Philip Hoffman, Mr. Bertrand Gordon, we'll see you tomorrow. What hour? At noon. He became chairman. I recall a year or 2 before that, he made some presentations, a medal to the advisors, presented at the annual meeting of the American Jewish Committee. Sorry, the United Jewish Appeal. In December, 10 years ago in New York. And I hadn't seen Lucius Clay since I left Germany. And this was a black tie affair, and I walked into the reception room, and there it was. Well, he embraced me. with a warmth that was deeply touching. It gave me a lump in my throat. And it meant a lot, because that touch really reminded both of us of one crisis after another. And I recall when he pardoned the life of Ilse Koch, if you recall, made lampshades out of human skin. And I began to get letters from all over the country. You can shut it off.
No, go ahead, I'm interested.
About his anti-Semitism. I discussed it with him. He said, Bill, I'm an American who believes in due process of law. There was no due process at that trial. She was convicted before anybody heard the case. Well, I think she's a bitch. You don't kill people unless it's clear. So I commuted to life imprisonment. That makes me anti-Semitic and anti-Semitic. But I knew he wasn't, because I had incidents in my experience with him. When Jews violated American law and left Germany to fight in the War of Independence, when we had an embargo on the exit of any DPs from Germany. I will not tell you the rest because Clay is still alive. But it's a perfectly fantastic story as to what he told me when these trucks were intercepted on the border.
We can't go beyond
No,
that.
I won't go into it. I have never told it publicly. But it convinced me as to where his heart was.
Well, I think there's enough material that shows that Clay was extremely helpful
Oh,
and willing to go to great lengths. I heard a story where he was willing to even send a sealed train to the British zone full of Jews. Is that the story that you know?
no, the story. Shut it off, I'll tell you. Sort of a gregarious person. I make friends easily. And I treasure friendships. I don't remember many chaplains. I remember Klausner because he made an impact upon me as a very brilliant man. Brilliant man. I was rather startled when I lost contact with him. And that letter that came to me only a few months ago was out of the blue. I recall taking it home and reading it to my wife. And she said, isn't he the man who told you you shouldn't be in Germany, you should go home, that you're wasting your time, that these camps ought to be closed, that you're making the people too comfortable. So that's the fact. It's interesting that she remembered, because I must have come home and told her all about it. And I knew that he was the head of some important congregation, but I'd forgotten where.
Temple of Magdalene in Yonkers.
They were-
Yonkers, New York.
Yeah, well, I thought for a moment he succeeded one of these very distinguished rabbis in Boston.
He did.
Ah, there you are, you see.
Liebman.
Liebman, that's right. Joshua Liebman. He wrote a book on a very famous
It
title.
was
Very famous title.
it was a
And I-
bestseller.
Huh?
It was a bestseller.
That's right. And I remembered it. I'd met Liebman and then was
Joshua Liebman, right?
Yeah, but the book is on my
Yes,
tongue.
yeah, I can't remember the
And
name.
then I remember this very sweet guy in Heidelberg. And I wish I remembered him, a chaplain, who became a dear friend. He was a bachelor. And we kept on constantly looking for a collar for him.
Where did he go? Where did he go?
In the eastern part of the United States. And he corresponded with us for a while. We lost him. I remember Lipschitz. I'd met him many times. And I remember Barish, who was a Hill director, and I was chairman of the Hill Commission.
He's now in
And you see, if I had a wholesale indictment of chaplains as chairman of the Hill Commission, Rabbi Barish would never have been hired and later promoted. You know, you're looking for a balance. There it is.
Right.
I don't remember the others.
What was your impression of Lipschitz?
Mixed. He just was not the kind of a personality I'd be comfortable. I'd be at ease with. I'm nothing uncomfortable.
What about his effectiveness?
I wouldn't know. Abe Hyman would know. Abe Hyman would know how he worked and what he did. Because it's a principle of administration with me. If you've got a good assistant whom you trust, it was indispensable to worry about what you might call loosely field operations. You concentrate. I do that as a dean, and I do that as a chairman, and I did that as an advisor. And I had an identical title in Washington. Not on Jewish affairs, but on manpower. And I concentrated on dealing with General Clay and General Thomas, and the military, and the people who could make or break our work. And whether it was a raid in Heidenheim, or was it Zalsheim, or the Center for Black Market Operations, I Abe Hyman visit. I recall one day taking a trip to Vienna with Abe Hyman. And I said, God, I wish I had a nice, good corned beef sandwich. He reached into his military overcoat pocket, a yan top, a sausage, a corned beef, black bread, and pickles. And I said, you must have been a Zausser. He says, I was. Because anything that was not procurable in Germany could get in Zausser. Well, you knew that. I said, at the office, if I asked you for a postage stamp, you couldn't find it. Here we are in a compartment on a train. I wanted a corned beef sandwich, you got it. I'll never forget the story. When I saw him, quite by accident, I didn't know he was in town. It was an art meeting, which I was going to address. And there in the audience was Abe Lyman.
Oh, you saw him in the audience?
I went up and greeted him and embraced. Before I began my talk, I introduced him. Told the group about him, told him what he did, told him what he meant to me. And told him how he enriched my life by that German experience. He was a fascinating person. Is he in the country, do you know?
Sure, yeah.
Do you know an address or a telephone
6
number?
Bitkin Street in Tel Aviv.
Wouldn't have a telephone number.
I'm not on it, but I can get it from...
Phone it in if I'm not here.
leave a message? Okay, fine.
Leave a message with the address and telephone.
Okay.
Because I'd love to call him.
There's a possibility that he might even be in Jerusalem, but you'd have to check with
I
him.
saw him in Jerusalem once. I came here for an honorary degree at Hebrew University. And there Abe was in the audience. Again. And I noticed him. 2 people I left the platform to see. One was Mikhail Zamd,
Yeah.
the Russian linguist, who was in the audience, and I came to see him because I went off the platform to see him, because one of my colleagues in Ann Arbor, Professor Paper, had a lot to do stirring up the whole country as liberation come through. And the other one was Abe Lyman. But then I got embroiled in the after ceremony complications.
He said, why? I said, well, this is people out of here. And here is a sensible fellow, impressive, speaks well. I couldn't read any ulterior motives into his point of view, and there weren't any. He says, we are destroying their lives. We are demoralizing them by keeping it in this sick, utterly sick atmosphere. The atmosphere was sick, I know that. I recall what an experience I had when I was invited to the home of a Jew. There was to be a piano recital at his home by a prominent, world-renowned German pianist, Gieseking. Somebody said, you going, Bill? I said, yes, why not? Gieseking played for Hitler. Well, you know, it raised a whole question. Should the advisor on Jewish affairs go? Well, I knew this, the host, I don't recall his name even, undoubtedly get back to Germany, made a fortune, some illegal activity, but was exceedingly helpful to us. Opened doors we couldn't get open. Gave us money when we needed it. I went, got it in the neck. Got it in the neck by way of criticism. How do you explain it? Well, I don't try to explain some things. I didn't want to offend a friend. Period. Incidentally, a beautiful piano recital. You know, the same problem Israel has. Do they play Wagner or don't they?
Right.
Then you got the old story, you know. As Ben-Gurion becomes a great friend of Adenauer. And Nachum Grobman gets a couple of $1 billion out of the Germans. So where does filthy wealth stop? And how do you clean it? Well, good luck on your book.
Thank you very much.
Now, are you with the Institute of